Mama G story time. Life lesson: use your words wisely. It was the end of the year party at Mr. Daka's place of work. This was the biggest event of the year, and all the employees planned their personal affairs around it to ensure they didn't miss it. Every employee and their significant others made sure they were dressed to impress, and it was not different for the Dakas, who were usually among the best dressed at this event. The Dakas have been married for 10 years with 3 beautiful children, but over the years, Mr. Daka had gotten too comfortable calling his wife fat. What started as him trying to motivate his wife to work out to maintain her figure became verbal abuse. As time went on, it started to affect Mrs. Daka's overall confidence, and she stopped accompanying her husband to any corporate events. However, one year, Mr. Daka's boss, Mr. Thompson, insisted that all senior management should bring their wives or significant others to the big event because some big investors were invited. Mr. Thompson wanted to present his employees as dedicated, hard-working, and good family men and women. This left Mrs. Daka with no choice because she didn't want to be the only spouse who wasn't supportive, so she reluctantly agreed to go. The day finally came, and when Mrs. Daka came out of the bedroom to leave for the event, everyone gushed about how amazing she looked. Even the domestic help couldn't help but cheer her on with praise as she walked to the car. Upon arrival, compliments and praises continued pouring in for Mrs. Daka, who they hadn't seen in a very long time. When they got to Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, who were both pleasantly surprised to see her, Mr. Thompson gave her a big hug and said, "You sure are a sight for sore eyes." Mrs. Thompson cut in and said, "I now understand why Mr. Daka has been keeping you away. Yes, she is beautiful, but she would look even better if she lost some weight," Mr. Daka responded. Everyone around was shocked, they could not believe what they were hearing, and as if the presence of people was more encouragement or incentive for him to continue, he said, "She used to be so beautiful, a stunner when I first married her, but not anymore." All those standing in earshot looked on in disbelief as some came to Mrs. Daka's defense, saying it wasn't a nice thing to say to someone and she was not fat. Mrs. Daka also spoke up for herself and said, "Yes, I know I am not a supermodel anymore, but neither are you in the same athletic shape I found you." But this didn't stop Mr. Daka from continuing to mock his wife. Pointing to Melinda, one of his colleagues, he said, "Look at her over there. She still looks amazing even after 5 kids, just look at her." Mrs. Daka was so humiliated and hurt that she simply walked away in tears. Mr. Thompson, who had witnessed the whole thing unfold, pulled Mr. Daka aside to have a word with him. "In all my years, I have never heard such despicable words said to someone," he said, looking directly at Mr. Daka. "To say I am disappointed in you would be an understatement. How can you be so thoughtless to your wife? Don't you know that harsh words are just as bad if not worse than physical abuse? Let me tell you something, she is gorgeous and many men would kill to be with such a woman. Look around, our wives are here to support us. Have you heard anyone else putting their spouses down? You need to be very careful what you say to your wife, or one day you will lose the best thing that ever happened to you and end up alone." Mrs. Thompson, who had run after Mrs. Daka, said, "Young lady, don't let your husband's words put you down. I am so sorry he doesn't realize that his words are hurtful. I hope this doesn't take you into a world of negativity. My sincere hope is that this doesn't ruin your evening." Unfortunately, it was too late. Mrs. Daka's day was already ruined. She went home, a very sad and humiliated woman. Moral of the story: despicable words or verbal abuse can hurt, especially if it comes from people who are supposed to love and protect you. They might not leave visible marks, but those who experience them still suffer emotionally. Some people naturally gravitate towards negative tendencies, so they feel good when they bring others down. If you are in a relationship or in contact with such people, be brave enough to stand up for yourself. Address how their hurtful words affect you and impact your overall self-worth and well-being. Set boundaries on what you will and will not accept in a relationship or when you are in their company. Otherwise, if you ignore what they say and don't speak up, the pattern will remain unchanged and probably get worse. We are told to let our words be seasoned with salt for those who hear them. This is because kind words are like honey that is sweet to the soul, and healthy for the body. Always remember, charity begins at home. The people at home, or those closest to us, should be the first to experience our kindness, generosity, and most importantly kind words. Hope you have enjoyed this week's story. Until the next time. This has been Mama G's Story Time. Make sure to subscribe on my YouTube channel at One Mama G to get alerts when new stories are posted.